What's going on, guys, and welcome to my Friday Night SmackDown audio review for March 25th, 2022. I am Graham G.S. Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and gearing up for WrestleMania week coming up in just a few short days. Another card on paper doesn't exactly look to be the most promising or exciting. I'm always excited for WrestleMania season, WrestleMania itself. I will be there in Dallas starting on Wednesday. I'll be there from Wednesday through the following Tuesday. I'll be there for quite a while, covering WrestleMania, some other events in the area in Dallas, leading up to the event next weekend. So I'm looking forward to that, the two-night event, that is. And unfortunately, the TV has not reflected my excitement for, not really the card. I mean, there are some matches on the card I'm looking forward to. I've spoken quite a bit extensively about the build in recent weeks here on this review and on WrestleRant Radio and elsewhere. SmackDown itself has been a very abysmal show for a long time now. I hate to sound like a broken record here every week in breaking down SmackDown. This show did nothing to change my opinion on that. We had, much like last week, a very good women's match. One good angle at the end. The rest of the show was a complete wash. A total waste of 2 hours. I did not watch this show live. I think I was playing 2K22 or watching Monk or something. I don't remember. I think both. I played 2K22, then watched Monk, and then SmackDown. Because I knew if I watched SmackDown live, I would be wasting 2 hours live. When in reality, if I watched it after the fact, which I tend to do most times, most weeks nowadays, I would be able to skip through all the commercials and get through the show in like an hour. And that's literally what happened. I started the show at like 10:30 p.m. Eastern on DVR, maybe like 10:20. Got through it by like 11:30, 11:25. Like, seriously, if you take out all the bullshit on this show, and there were so many video packages, backstage interviews, segments, for a 1 hour show and building up stuff for WrestleMania, I kind of get it. But the unfortunate thing is that a lot of these feuds just aren't good. Like, I thought the Happy Corbin-Drew McIntyre interview/video package on the show was well done. That was probably the best thing they've done since the storyline started months ago. But a lot of what we got on the show, a complete waste of time. A lot of, like for a 2 hour show, we literally maybe got 90 seconds of wrestling. Nakamura and Jimmy Uso opened the show. They had a decent match for the time given. King Woods returned. That was one of the highlights from this show. Probably the only highlight, actually, as far as things that were newsworthy. He beat Ridge Holland in under a minute. Ronda and Charlotte spoke again. The Ricochet matches with Los Lotharios were very brief. The women's four-way was good, and then the closing segment of the show saw Brock go after the Bloodline. So that was my quick recap. I could end there if I wanted to. I'm not going to. I'm going to go a bit more in-depth than that. But it just goes to show that SmackDown just, it's a wild, wild show. This had a lot of botches on it as far as production miscues. They announced Humberto was Ricochet's opponent initially when it was actually Angel. Then they went in Humberto. They spoiled the King Woods surprise before he even came out by accident. A lot of weird miscues on the show. Not unknown for WWE, not uncommon, but just weird. They all happen on one night. And then, again, talking about the video packages and the replays and the Raw recaps and all this other shit. I mean, I can't tell you. My finger was like almost permanently glued to the fast-forward button of my remote watching the show last night on DVR. I mean, that's probably what I'm going to be doing going forward if I haven't already. I can't really remember, but watching SmackDown, usually Raw as well. I can get through Raw in like 90 minutes tops, at the very least, if I skip through all the bullshit. And I don't know, it's just not an enjoyable time watching the show most weeks. And stuff happens, which is why I cover it here on the channel, and we don't talk about it on WrestleRant Radio, which drops on Thursdays. But this felt like a go-home show for WrestleMania as far as SmackDown goes, and not in a good way. The go-home SmackDowns before Mania have traditionally almost always been video packages, promos, and that's it. That's very likely what we're going to be getting next week as well. They did advertise 2 matches for next week, but I'm sure the rest of the show will consist of video packages and interviews and promos and recaps, and some of those things can be entertaining. But when the card isn't exactly overly compelling, seeing the same video package and promos over a million times, seeing them a million times over isn't exactly the most exciting episode of SmackDown. So I say that, though I'll likely be there next week. If I'm not there, I might be a Ring of Honor Super Card of Honor. I'm not sure. I applied for media for that one, so I might be able to attend that event. I'm not 100% sure yet. I'm not even sure if I'm going to SmackDown, but I would like to, not really for SmackDown itself, but more so for the Hall of Fame ceremony that will be following. I'm looking forward to that. So with The Undertaker obviously going in, so that should be a fun time. SmackDown itself, let's just get right into it right now as far as not this show is concerned, but what they announced for next week and the big Triple H news that dropped earlier in the day on Friday via ESPN. Stephen A. Smith, the interview he did with Paul, talking about his health and an update on his in-ring career, which was also a huge story yesterday. I'll probably go more in-depth with it another time on Hashtag or on WrestleRant Radio, maybe next week, but I do want to address that in a moment. For next week's SmackDown, before I forget, we're getting the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal for the second straight year on the SmackDown Before Mania. Now, they did it last year on the SmackDown Before Mania, which I'm not complaining. They didn't do any pre-shows last year, by the way, for WrestleMania. They don't ordinarily announce their pre-show matches for Mania now in recent years until like right before. Like literally the week of, they don't announce like what matches will be. Actually, that's not really a new thing. I remember a decade ago, The Miz and Barrett were always scheduled to be at the WrestleMania card, on the WrestleMania card, the main card for the Intercontinental Championship. It was like the week of or a week before the show, they announced it was being bumped to the kickoff instead. They've done that every year for years now, so that's really nothing new. I don't know if they're going to have a pre-show. They already have like 6 or 7 matches per card. I assume there will be more. I mean, they have a 2-night show. I'm not saying you have to get everyone on the card, but the whole fucking point of doing the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal is to get people who aren't on the card. You know what I mean? And it doesn't have to be on the main card. Usually it's a waste of time anyway. The trophy means nothing. A majority of the people who have won it are actually gone from the company, which is hysterical when you think about it. Cesaro was the first ever person to win it. He's gone. Big Show, he won it. He left the company last year. Happy Corbin won it, Baron Corbin, whatever, in his debut, and he's still here. 2017, though, it was won by Mojo Rawley. 2018, it was won by Matt Hardy. I mean, it's honestly wild when you think about 4 out of 6 people that have won it are gone from WWE. That is insane. In 2019, who won it in 20? I don't even remember. Oh my God, Braun Strowman. Braun Strowman won it at WrestleMania 35. Literally, I think Happy Corbin, aside from Jay Uso, who won it last year, who is obviously still here, 2 of the last 7 people who have won this fucking trophy aren't even here. Honestly, part of me is hoping that Finn Balor wins it next week, and I'll get to him in a moment, but part of me is hoping that he wins it, which is an omen, like a sign that he's leaving WWE soon. Because the fact that he is in this goddamn battle royal, not even at WrestleMania. The man was in NXT for 2 years. He missed WrestleMania 36 and 37. 36 was probably a blessing because there was no fans anyway. But he has not been at WrestleMania since 35. 3 years ago, he beat Bobby in like a 1.5-minute match for the Intercontinental Championship. He never really has had a WrestleMania moment. I guess that would be it because he won as the Demon. No one really remembers that. Not that he would have a WrestleMania moment this year, but you have a built-in storyline with him and Damian Priest. I don't think Damian Priest was on Raw this week. They did Finn Balor versus Austin Theory. The focus was more so on Austin Theory and Pat McAfee furthering that feud as opposed to Balor in the United States Championship or anything they're doing with him and Damian Priest. Which Damian Priest beat Finn Balor a week ago on Raw. Not this week, the week before, in a non-title match. You would think, why they wasted it on Raw, I don't know. But you would think they would set up a rubber match for WrestleMania, Balor-Priest U.S. Championship. They need to have that all-out banger I've been hoping for since their NXT days. They've had 2 good matches on Raw recently, not to the level of which I know they're capable of. And they get put in the fucking Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal instead. Like, the losers in this thing, it's just sad to look at. I mean, you got the Hurt Business, Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin, Commander Aziz, Apollo Crews, even fucking Robert Roode is in there. Dolph is not. Dolph is the NXT champion, so I'm glad they're not subjecting the NXT title to a... I was going to say he would have a conflict, but Stand and Deliver is on Saturday morning. They're not calling it TakeOver anymore. That is Saturday morning. SmackDown's the night before. They could have him in the Battle Royal on SmackDown if they wanted to, but it's definitely better that he's not in it. But yeah, so he's not in it, but Roode is, and the only 2 notable names in that thing are literally Balor and Priest. If one of them doesn't win, I don't even know what to say. But the problem is that they shouldn't be in it anyway. They should be on WrestleMania. They still need to fill out the fucking card. They have, 5 or 6 matches? You think they're going to fill out 3 hours with 5 matches? Maybe if this was an AEW pay-per-view or like an NXT special, I'd say, fuck yeah, that'd be awesome. WWE doesn't work like that. This show will go 3 hours at least each night. They are not doing a 2.5-hour WrestleMania on Saturday or Sunday. I know Taker's probably going to get like an hour-long entrance on one of the Hall of Fame nights when they introduce the class or whatever. Fine, but I still don't think that some of these matches are getting 20 minutes. why not throw them on the card as one of the openers? I just fail to see why having them in the Battle Royal is a good idea. I don't understand that at all. So they're doing that next week, as well as Ricochet, Angel, and Humberto in a triple threat match for the Intercontinental Championship. I'll get to why that's happening a little later on, because that reflects, or that, is an extension of my SmackDown review here in a moment from Friday. But again, you want to fill out the card, and I'm not sure how many more matches they're really going to add. I don't think they're doing Rollins and Cody in a straight-up match. I mean, there's a chance Cody could return on Monday, but you're so fucking close to WrestleMania at this point, it would feel rushed. Just wait until Mania to bring in Cody. We all know he's coming in. Just wait until WrestleMania to use Cody. So, and that wouldn't even be a match, I don't think. Even what they're doing with Steve Austin and Kevin Owens might take up some time. I don't imagine it would be a 20-minute segment or even a match. I just don't see that. So you need to fill out the card. That match should be fun. And again, I don't want to sound hypocritical because I always say, oh, not everyone needs to be at WrestleMania. The Intercontinental Championship and the United States Championship specifically should both be defended at WrestleMania. The fact that it's not is just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, the U.S. Championship is more egregious because it has been involved in an actual storyline lately. But what did I fucking tell you a month ago? When Ricochet won the belt, cool moment. I guarantee you they will give up on him within a matter of weeks. Their grand idea to getting Ricochet in a title defense WrestleMania weekend was having both challengers beat him in consecutive matches, albeit one by countout, but still, Ricochet's a loser. He lost twice, back-to-back matches, one in a match that was like 2 minutes. I mean, you can't make this shit up. They were pretending, oh, he's a big deal now. He beat Sami Zayn in the main event clean a couple of weeks ago to retain the title. He wasn't even on the fucking show last week. Not even a mere mention of Ricochet. He had to tweet out that he was still the Intercontinental Champion for people that forgot. And now he's not even at WrestleMania. The same championship that was on the line in that historic ladder match, not 25 years ago, but almost 30 years ago. Think about that. Almost 30 years ago between Shawn Michaels and the late, great Scott Hall in that ladder match of WrestleMania 10. One of the best WrestleMania matches of all time. There was some talk among fans, and I love this idea. Why not do a Scott Hall invitational ladder match? Because they used to do those grand spot fest ladder matches at Mania. I wasn't a big fan of those. Like, the biggest, I guess at 31 it was fine, because the Intercontinental Championship picture at that point was a fucking mess. That was like their version of the Money in the Bank ladder match. At that point, just bring back the Money in the Bank ladder match, but they like to make Money in the Bank its own pay-per-view, so I get it. The 31 one I liked. The 32 one was also great, but the issue with the 32 ladder match was the fact that I really felt like it should have been Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn straight up. Thankfully, they had their chance last year to have that one-on-one match at Mania, and it was quite good for the time given. But, if you can tell a story there, then do it. If you don't have a story with the Intercontinental Championship, then put it on the line in a Scott Hall Invitational ladder match. I like that idea a lot. And this triple threat match should be great next week, but why not put these three guys in said ladder match? If Cesaro was still around, you could have put him in there. I'd really have to look at the SmackDown roster for who I'm missing, but I don't think they're doing the New Day versus Butch, Sheamus, and Ridge Holland match now, so they could. I was talking last week, what if Ricochet teams with New Day? That's also a possibility, but obviously not at this point. Maybe he retains the title, then joins up with New Day. I don't see that happening. I think that'd be weird. I think the whole point of doing these matches next week are for the people who will not be at WrestleMania. So I don't think Ricochet retains the title, loses the title, whatever, and then goes on to WrestleMania to have a match with the New Day. I'm not even sure if the New Day will be at WrestleMania in an actual match. Like I said, I would have done a ladder match with maybe not both of Los Lotharios, but one of them, probably Angel. I like Carrillo, but Angel's just much more of a star. Angel, Ricochet, Woods, Kofi, Sheamus, and I'm not even really sure why they felt the urge to call up Pete Dunne now. If he wasn't going to really do anything overly meaningful, and they're actually doing more with him than they have done with Xia Li so far. Where the fuck did she go? She had one match and we haven't seen her in a month. That's beyond random. I would have just waited until after WrestleMania, like the SmackDown after Mania, to call that guy up, because at this point it's like, what is he even doing? So those are my thoughts in next week's matches for SmackDown. Like I said, there's a decent chance I will be there. Very good chance I will not be covering here on the channel. I doubt it. I haven't done SmackDown reviews WrestleMania weekend at all yet. I started doing these SmackDown reviews in late 2019. 2 years ago, I don't think I did it. I may have. I don't think I did. I think I just watched SmackDown really late that year. I watched it right before WrestleMania started, so I didn't do one. And then on Saturday, last year, WrestleMania Saturday. I was there, so I just didn't have the time. So I don't think I'll be doing a SmackDown audio review next week right before WrestleMania, and I'll probably be going to TakeOver anyway that morning. So, no SmackDown review next week. I'll probably do a written review. I'm not sure how quickly I can get that up on WrestleRant.com before I got to catch some sleep at some point. So I got to sleep eventually. But, next week should be fun, if nothing else. Even though that show is, I don't know, that SmackDown with the Battle Royal, not exactly overly enticing, let's put it that way. It's probably going to be Video Package City before Hall of Fame later on that night. To open the actual episode, let's talk about, before we even get to Nakamura and Jimmy Uso real quick, the bigger story from Friday, much bigger than anything that happened on SmackDown itself. Triple H being forced to retire from in-ring competition. Obviously, it's his own choice, but it isn't. He really doesn't have much of a choice. It is his choice, but I don't know if they would ever clear him anyway, but that's not even important because the guy could fucking die if he ever wrestled again. I won't get into every single detail here. If you don't want to watch the full interview, I think it's on ESPN Plus, if not on the ESPN YouTube channel. Triple H and Stephen A. Smith. The Spark Notes version, the abbreviated version, is that he has a defibrillator in his chest now. He had viral pneumonia initially, and he was coughing up blood. Stephanie urged him to go to the hospital. This is like late August, early September, I believe. Found out that he had a genetic heart disorder. I forgot the exact terms that he was using, but he was essentially experiencing heart failure, or was about to. He was down to like 12% of, again, I forgot the exact term of which he used. I'm not a medical person. I don't have the notes in front of me, but he was down to 12%, and there's a lot of people who have had that same number who have unfortunately since passed away, who would go on to die, because that's obviously life-threatening. He thought he might pass away, which is really scary to think about. But, so that was really scary, and he had to have emergency surgery and whatever. So he has a defibrillator in his chest now. He's been very quiet about the whole thing for many, many months, and for whatever reason. I didn't watch the full interview. I'll probably maybe get around to it at some point. I'm not sure, but just scary stuff, man. I'm glad Triple H is even here. The fact that he's retired, that was the biggest thing. People saying, thank you, Triple H, all this other stuff. Obviously the guy deserves his flowers. He had a legendary career. But the fact that he can no longer wrestle is really just not relevant. The only sad thing about it is that we will never get that Triple H send-off match. And I've said for years now, I don't want to sound hypocritical, but Triple H's Mania matches in the last 5, 6, 7 years have just not been necessary. When there's a story worth telling there, it's worth doing, then yeah. If not, then it's like, it just feels forced. Like the last Mania match he had was ironically against Batista, and the fact that the stipulation was if Triple H lost. Was it if Triple H lost, he can never... Yeah, I think that was this. I think the stipulation was if Triple H lost, he can never wrestle again, or he would have to retire. Ironically, Triple H won. Batista retired anyway. I don't think the stipulation was if Batista lost, he'd have to retire. I think he willingly retired on social media the next day. And then Triple H never wrestled a major Mania again. He did have one pay-per-view match, one televised match about a year ago, or 3 years ago at this point. It was in 2019, Super Showdown in Saudi against Orton. He wrestled a few house show matches after that in the summer of 2019, but that was about it. So it is sad he will never get that grand send-off as far as from an in-ring standpoint. It's just not going to happen. It's not an Edge thing. It's not a Page thing. Heart issues, I feel like, I don't know what's worse, between heart issues or brain issues. They're both pretty serious, but for his own safety and health and everything else, it's much better he retires for good. But it was very sad news and very scary to hear all that. I'm just happy he's okay. I'm happy he's even still here. He said he's feeling like 50% of who he once was or was before the health scare. So, and that's wild to think about, considering that was over 6 months ago, and he's still recovering at a very slow pace. So I'm glad he opened up about that thing yesterday and, got his flowers from people on social media, respecting his in-ring career. It is sad to see the career of the game end that way, but I'm glad he's at least okay and he's still here with us now. So I would implore everyone to, at least if you don't want to check out the full interview, they have the clips up on Twitter, on their YouTube channel. Just type in Triple H Stephen A. Smith. I'm sure you'll find it. So we finally get to SmackDown here from last night. Not the most eventful show, which is why I really haven't gone too in-depth, or won't go too in-depth with what I'm about to say here on the show. But, Shinsuke Nakamura versus Jimmy Uso 1-on-1. Jimmy Uso, one half of the SmackDown Tag Team Champions. We are getting at WrestleMania Nakamura and Rick Boogs versus the Usos for the belts. A very lazy, generic build to that belt. I just really don't give a fuck. Nakamura winning was a foregone conclusion, as he should have. They need the momentum boost going into the show. I don't know if they take the titles. I don't know if they even should. I like Nakamura and Boogs, but then again, if the Usos retain, who do they face after that? Like, they already beat the Viking Raiders. They already beat the New Day, this version of the New Day. The Biggie won't be around for a while, so, he's not going to be factored. I thought at one point, I'm thinking, did they have Kofi and Biggie? Like, Woods and Kofi already failed to win the tag titles from the Usos twice earlier this year. But what if it's Kofi and Biggie who take the tag titles? I'm thinking, no thanks. Like, we already saw the New Day Usos feud a million times. But Biggie's gone for right now, so that's clearly not going to happen. So they already beat the New Day, they already beat the Raiders, they already beat the Profits, they beat the Mysterios. Like, I'm not even really sure what teams are left. So I do think there's a decent chance they drop the championships at WrestleMania. And I don't know if that'd be the worst thing. Just switch it up for a little bit, I guess. But, the match was good. It was what it was. I don't really give a fuck about the feud, but, this was a good match. We then had the return of King Woods. So this was advertised as Kofi Kingston versus Ridge Holland Part 2. Kofi lost to Ridge last week after interference from Sheamus and Butch at ringside. Fucking hate calling him Butch, but that's what he is. Pete Dunne, you know what I mean. So Kofi comes out, and unfortunately, the ring announcer, Samantha Irvin or something like that, I know that's Chris Jericho's real last name, but Samantha something, Ricochet's girlfriend, she unfortunately announced Kofi as being accompanied to the ring by King Woods. And I'm thinking, so I didn't hear that actually as it happened. I'm thinking now, looking back on it, because I wasn't overly paying attention to SmackDown, like just sitting there watching it, whatever. I think I was talking or something at the time or whatever. I just wasn't paying overly attention. I did notice the pop for Woods was like not really that loud. I'm like, he's been gone for months. You would think people would pop a little louder, but it's because they spoiled the announcement by saying he was accompanying Kofi to the ringside before Kofi could even say that he was facing Ridge Holland instead. So poor Xavier Woods getting his return ruined on Friday. That's unfortunate. But he went on to beat Ridge in literally under 60 seconds. Ridge did not come away from this looking great. It's a successful return to the ring for Woods, and he should be winning. He is the king of the ring. I just don't know why they didn't give them more time. Like, that was a little weird to me. Could you not have just done this as a segment? I mean, the match was completely pointless. Could you have not have done this as a segment where Woods comes out to help out Kofi and they fend off Sheamus, Butch, and Ridge Holland? Did they really need to do Woods and Holland? That's what I didn't understand. So that was what it was. But at least we have Woods back. And as far as what I said earlier, if they're not going to be in some sort of multi-man Intercontinental Championship match, which it's pretty much guaranteed they won't be, then what do you do? Do you do Kofi and Woods versus two members of that team? I mean, I guess. My guess is that it'll probably be Butch to get him on the card. I mean, Ridge maybe, but I feel like Ridge loses a lot. So I would just have it be Sheamus and Butch versus Kofi and Xavier. That's probably what I would do. We then had Ronda Rousey and Charlotte Flair exchanging words. It was advertised that Ronda was on a rampage, not Rampage the show, but she was gunning after Charlotte for what she did last week. I mean, she came out smiling and clapping hands with fans, so I'm not exactly sure where the rampage was and where the intensity was. Ronda's mic skills, I guess, are marginally better from what they were from when she first came back, but they're just still not good. And I like Ronda is the problem. I want to really get behind this feud, and I am looking forward to the match. But it doesn't change the fact the feud has sucked. We had an interview go up yesterday here on the channel with Charlotte. She was a treat to talk to, and I even said I'm looking forward to the match because it is a marquee match. But the fact of the matter is that they have not done what, not them specifically, but WWE, they have not done a great job of building up excitement for this match at all. Ronda's mic skills are just abysmal. I mean, she desperately needs a mouthpiece. I feel like the best way to kind of work around that, and Ronda was a babyface for quite a while when she first came in 4 years ago. I don't know what changed. Maybe WWE is even more scripted now than it was in 2018. I don't know. But her promos are somehow worse now than they were 4 years ago. I don't know how that is or why that's the case, but it is. So yeah, I would give her a mouthpiece. I would turn her heel at some point. If she's going to be a babyface, at least have her work with someone or be friendly with someone who can talk for her. I mean, I know practice makes perfect, but she's just awkward. Like at one point she messed up her words and said, "Oh, it's the SmackDown Championship. Oh, why do we even include women's in it anyway?" Which is a whole other argument for a different day. And I don't think she's entirely wrong as far as why is it called the SmackDown Women's Championship and it's not the Men's Universal Championship? I do agree with that to an extent, but it goes back to the same issue from a few years ago when they tried doing that. They didn't call it the Men's NXT Championship. They just called it the NXT Championship and the NXT Championship. It's like, all right, what the fuck? What? That doesn't make any sense. So quickly that was very quickly done away with. They didn't end up doing that, thankfully. But anyway, I thought that was worth noting. But yeah, the segment was okay here. The verbal exchange itself was fine. They didn't really do a lot to get me excited about this match at WrestleMania. I really just, I'm looking forward to the match itself, but the feud has been completely lame. It's just hard to care. So this was what it was. We then had Ricochet in back-to-back matches, championship contenders matches no less, against both members of Los Lotharios. The Angel match went all of fucking 2 minutes. I'm not even sure what the point was, but Angel won. Ricochet loses. Ricochet says, not so fast, I want you in a rematch. You got Humberto instead. Humberto beats Ricochet in a quick championship contenders match by countout. So, a complete waste of time. They did this to set up next week's triple threat, so at least they did something to earn it, I guess. It didn't exactly make Ricochet look good, though, losing back-to-back matches like a loser. And the matches were too short to really be anything out of the ordinary. So, again, it was hard for me to care, which is what you can kind of apply to the rest of the show, as I mentioned earlier. So, that was that. The best match on the show by far was Sasha Banks versus Queen Zelina, Shayna Baszler, and Rhea Ripley in Fatal 4-Way action. One member of each team in the WWE Women's Tag Team title match next weekend at WrestleMania. This was good stuff. I like the match. Banks and Ripley is going to be a future feud I'm looking forward to. Zelina is a competent wrestler, and Shayna is very good as well. So I would say they picked the 4 best wrestlers of the team. Looking at it now, I would say Carmella's probably better than Zelina. But Zelina's not bad. I just don't think she's great. She actually has improved a little bit from where she was about a year or two ago. But this was a good match. They got some decent time. Banks won to further their momentum going into WrestleMania. I mean, I'm honestly shocked that this women's feud has gotten as much exposure and as much attention as it has. But I guess when you have people like Rhea Ripley and Sasha Banks and Liv Morgan and people like that involved in the feud, you kind of have to give it some time because they're big stars for that women's division, so, and just in general, too. So I guess I shouldn't be surprised. I mean, there's no real storyline reason behind any of this. It's just 4 teams vying for a championship that means nothing, that probably won't give a fuck about that championship coming out of WrestleMania. I mean, if Seth Rollins really wants a WrestleMania match, just put on a fucking wig and find a partner, because they will accept anyone into this match at WrestleMania for the women's tag team titles. But this was good stuff, though, like I said. That was one of the few highlights from the show. To close the show, kind of more of the same from Brock Lesnar and the Bloodline, with Brock coming after Roman in the ring, destroying security, destroying ringside, destroying his room in the back. That was the whole theme throughout the show. We saw Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns' hangout area, because Roman arrived at the arena late, destroy the whole thing. I'm sure Roman doesn't give a fuck. I mean, it's not like it's his house. It's some random office set up in a random arena. Like, why would he give a shit? And it wasn't even really that nice. It was like a shitty, decent couch, a shitty table that he broke instantly. But anyway, that was pretty much the end segment. I mean, Brock came out, went after the security, killed them all. I was hoping to see some familiar faces among the security, because they were in the Northeast last night, in Brooklyn, actually. Didn't see any. It was all indie people I didn't recognize. But yeah, he destroyed the security, and that was really about it. So, and the Bloodline, specifically Roman, dodged another attack from Brock Lesnar. So that was the show in a nutshell. I like the segment, but they really need to get creative, and they don't need to at this point because WrestleMania is next weekend. But at least they're holding off on Brock getting his hands on Roman. I will say that. That's the story they're telling. They're sticking to that. I appreciate that. They are finding different ways to do it. So again, I appreciate that, even though I think we're all ready for this feud to be over after going on for literally the last 8 months, since SummerSlam of last year. Like I said, an abysmal show this week. The Brock and Roman stuff was a step down from what they did last week, but it was okay. The women's Fatal 4-Way I really liked. The Ricochet matches were just a waste of time. The Ronda Charlotte stuff was pretty tame. Woods and Holland got literally no time, but it was good to see Woods back. And the opening match was fine for what it was. So, thumbs down edition of SmackDown. No real surprise there. Nothing really worth going out of your way to see, I would say. The Triple H news was newsworthy, although that broke before SmackDown. They talked about it on SmackDown, but it broke earlier in the day. And the matches for next week should be interesting. So again, reminder, I said this earlier, but very likely, not even very likely, there will be no SmackDown audio review next week. I will be in Dallas for Mania weekend, the week before, the week after, to an extent. I'll be there for a while. If I'm not at SmackDown, which I'm pretty sure I will be, I'm hoping anyway, if I'm not there, I'll probably be doing something else. But either way, I will be at Stand and Deliver. I'm hoping the next day, and even if I'm not, I'll be watching it from the hotel. So I'll just have no time to do a SmackDown review. It won't really be necessary anyway. Maybe I'll include it. If you really want my thoughts, it's going to be in the written review on the website, on WrestleRant.com, so be sure to check that out when you get a chance. Beyond that, though, I will be in Dallas next week, so I'm looking forward to that. Stay tuned here to the channel for more exclusive interviews in the days to come, the announcements of which are going to be dropping on Twitter in the next few days, including tonight, so stay tuned for that. But we did have the SmackDown Women's Champion. Speaking of SmackDown, we had Charlotte Flair here on the channel yesterday, and in article form, it dropped on Bleacher Report yesterday morning, talking all things WrestleMania, Ronda Rousey, and so much more, her haters, and everything else, so if you haven't already checked it out, please do so. I would greatly appreciate it. Have a great rest of your weekend, guys. Let's rest up before WrestleMania. It's going to be a crazy, wild week for me specifically. I got to rest up and get some shit done. Have an awesome one, guys. I'm Graham G. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.